Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Ishvaro Guradmeti Murti Vedha Vibhakine Vyoma Vyapta Dehaya Dakshina Murtiya Namaha Sarva Vedanta Siddhanta Gocharam Tamagocharam Govindam Paramanandam Sadguru Pranatosmyam. From the first Guru, which is always consciousness, down to Shankaracharya in the middle, and my teacher at the end. I prostrate to the Guru-disciple tradition. Ishvara, my Guru, is beyond form and duality, beyond space and the body. I bow to Ishvara in the form of Dakshinamurti, and is the one who brings this knowledge. The import of all Vedanta texts is beyond the known and the unknown, which means it's valuable. It is limitless bliss and unborn light. I worship that reality as my Guru. That reality knowing which the cycle of birth and death ends. Okay, on the board, we have the outline for today, and we're going to revisit the Kosha, the Sheaths, because it's an important section, specifically the causal body, because if there's one thing that is usually not understood completely in Vedanta, it is the causal body, or the Anandamaya Kosha. And then we will revisit the Tatvamasi, and then we will provide a reasonable objection to try to destroy that Brahman is real. We will try to be smart and offer a strong skeptical argument that Brahman is false, and then we have to get out of that objection, because those will help us to first solidify the non-dual reality. And then also we will go through Aparoksha Anubhuti. This is another text, popular text, and is going to cover about 25 verses or so, which pertain to how to practice and integrate Vedanta in your life, using specific tips and hints, like what to do and how to think about my life and the world. So it's going to tell us exactly how to think. Okay. So starting with the first question is, why should we know about the Kosha? What's the point? How is this going to help? And the answer is, you're not learning this for academic reasons. We actually don't need to know what the koshas are. The irony is we do, because then we can't negate them. But we're not trying to be some intelligent person that can, kind of mention all these words and remember them and be a great one who can teach. That's not the point. The point is, in order to discard something that I'm not, I have to first know very specifically what I am discarding. Right? So that's a fair statement. So in that case, I need to discard the 3 bodies or the 5 sheaths, but I need to first know them specifically so I don't get tricked in thinking that one of the features of these 3 bodies is actually me. So we have to know exactly what is not me. And we started by the general statement. We're going to start today and say that on the board that Atman, the self, is defined as other than the 3 bodies, the causal, subtle, and the gross. It is other than the 5 sheaths, and it is the witness of the 3 states of experience, which are the
the dreaming, deep sleep.
Yeah, okay. Good. So we'll go back to verse 36, which we already covered, remember, up to 45 last fortnight, but just a revision. So the Blissed Sheath. Remember I said we're going to go straight to the Blissed Sheath.
Just one thing, the three bodies.
The three bodies are?
Body, mind, and intellect.
The three bodies are on the board. The first one is the physical.
Oh, subtle body, causal body. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. So the causal body, we already know generally the physical and the subtle. That's why I'm not going to cover it. But I want to specifically address the causal. Don't worry, we'll revisit the other ones too, just to make sure we know them. The causal body, that is impure sattva, associated with different degrees of joy. So we're talking about the causal body, associated with different degrees of joy, such as moda, priya, and pramoda, which is when I see something, I get excited. I want that girl. When I finally attain her, then she's sitting next to me on the opposite side of the table, then there's more joy. And then when there is a even closer connection, maybe that's an intimate connection, then there is even more joy. So that's an example of these three processes that we all go through. And those three processes of joy belong to what we call Anandamaya Kosha. And as self, continuing, self means Atma, we're talking about you, the self, I'm not talking about self over there, identifies with individual sheaths. That means I identify, you identify with these individual 5 sheaths. And then it seems to take on an array of personalities associated with one of these sheaths. So an array just means a huge amount, an impressive amount. So think about your body. Our body has pain, like toothache. So a toothache is like it's emitting a personality of its own called toothache. And then when we identify with the gross body, not only do we identify with the toothache, but also other kinds of pains that are related to the physical body. Or just look at features of your own body, right? Maybe it's tired, maybe it's energized, maybe it's it could look a little bit better, maybe it looks too good. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's tall, maybe it's short. So all of these physical features that are pretty obvious to identify, they're all belonging to this physical body. And then we identify and we say, I am in pain. I am in pain, right? That's the tooth is in pain. But then we go, I am in pain. Or, I'm in pain because there's digestive problems. So that's easy. And personality, for example, the intellect. The intellect cannot figure something out, and then it feels frustrated with its own ability to solve a problem. Right? And then we say, I am incompetent.
Or I'm confused.
I'm confused, right? And when it finally breaks through that problem, right, after maybe a day of figuring it out, then what happens? Joy, which belongs to Anandamaya Kosha. Okay. We'll get deeper into this joy because I want you to master this joy and know the difference between joy of self and the joy of Anandamaya Kosha, so you don't mix them together. Okay. And I brought in Tattva Bodha, which is an amazing text. This is from my Chinmaya teacher from Advaita Vedanta. He's extremely precise in words, so I'll use his teachings to explain what is the Anandamaya Kosha. And we'll just go point by point. It is the Karana Sharira, which is avidya, ignorance. So first point, the Anandamaya Kosha belongs to the Karana Sharira. Okay, so whenever we think of Anandamaya Kosha, that kosha because of which it gives joy when we see, when we attain, and when we experience, belongs to the Karana Sharira. We said earlier that Maya is Sattva, Raja, Tamaguna, the 3 gunas, and the Karana Sharira is a minuscule of that Sattva Rajas. However, it is dominant in Tamaguna. That's why there's blankness. So if you ever want to experience maximum Tamaguna, you've just done that last night. It's basically so ignorant, so dark that there's nothing to know. Absolutely nothing. And this tamaguna also operates in our lives when we're just kind of dull. You know, that time, like out of nowhere, we're just dull. And we're kind of not fast in our thinking. We're slow to catch on. That's simply tamaguna. So, sattva, which causes knowledge in deep sleep, is overpowered by tamaguna, which is why there is no knowledge of deep sleep. Because sattva guna is required to have knowledge of an experience. But sattva guna is completely overpowered by tamaguna. Therefore, there's no inquiry in deep sleep to even say anything. Continuing, karana sharira is nothing but avidya, we explained, in which tama guna has the higher power. That's why in deep sleep there is ignorance, as it's pure avidya. So everyone, even an enlightened person, also experiences pure avidya in deep sleep. Why? Because the tamaguna simply covers the mind. Because people often think an enlightened person will know deep sleep, right? That's false thinking. You can still have a body. Thus, deep sleep equals Anandamaya Kosha, equals Karana, equals avidya, equals tamaguna. Okay. Next question. What is the Anandamaya Kosha? Because you're now going to ask, what's the difference between Karana Sharira and Anandamaya Kosha? Is there a difference? There is a little bit of a difference, and we need to know that little bit, what it is. That Kosha, which is called Karana Sharira, or we should say that body which is called Karana Sharira, wherein ignorance reigns, avidya, because of which we experience bliss of absence of mind and senses, because of that sharira and that bliss of absence of our problems, we then describe sleep as really beautiful. So, in summary, we call sleep beautiful, joyful, happy because our life is gone. No life problems. Meaning, because the Karana Sharira leads to the experience of bliss in deep sleep, we call it Anandamaya Kosha. So, we're asking, why do we call it Blissed Sheath if it's ignorance? Right?
Ignorance is bliss.
Because in sleep, there is tamaguna, which completely suppresses the mind. The mind goes inwards. It's non-existent. And what has the problems? The mind. So when the problems go, what remains? Bliss. But to what does that bliss belong to? That happiness. Does that belong to the mind or to something else?
Sattva.
Huh?
Sattva.
No, not sattva. That's a good point. I'm glad you put not sattva. All bliss belongs to the self, Atman. Because remember, the reason we're not happy most of our times during the day, as much as we could be, right? We are generally happy, but we could be so much more happier. Is because the mind's operating, the mind's going on, the thoughts are going on. So right there, this means we shouldn't take ourselves too seriously, because remember, even a liberated person, they still have a mind to carry, right? And the mind is full of us, it's got some issues from past lives. So you can't now expect, this irrational belief that like Buddha, the enlightened, he's beyond everything. We're going to be real. There's still a person that will only, all of that, those problems will officially go when the body dies. Okay? So there is a realism of accepting that there is a body operating, and we can't now go, I'm supposed to be blissful. Is that clear? Mm-hmm. We have to put it down to perspective, because the spiritual world will tell us that liberation means the person's, somehow like up there, they're looking at the world and they're like beyond everything. That's very unrealistic.
So the Dalai Lama, his quality of mind is pretty much what we have. So I'm looking at someone who would seem to have a pretty clean mind, pretty clear mind.
That's all there is. Just a very clean mind.
Clear mind.
Yeah.
But his mind operates in the same way that ours might.
Exactly, because we're talking about vyavaharika, transactional empirical reality. The reality which Ishvara controls, the Triguna control, we don't. So to say that I am above this world is actually not to have proper understanding, to be in my own imagination. Because yes, guess what? You can be in your own world. Right? You can't be blissed out. But that world belongs to whom?
Ishvara.
And the person's own projections. That's called pratibhasika, their own subjective reality. They're living in their own world. And this world is beautiful, and I call it I am enlightened. But that's their world. It is not this world.
So
the objective world.
There must be a test not a test like a formal test, but there must be some indicators as to whether someone's living in their own world or they've got a very clear mind. Yeah,
you can just see how they speak. Just watch how they speak. It instantly gives it away. Right? Are they, speaking something you cannot relate to?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I can't follow you. Right? It's very easy, actually. Any other ways how to test? Oh, you've got some crazy.
I'd like to test what in particular?
Test in particular, if
clarity of mind. Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah, clarity of mind, or if they're living their own world, their own spiritually created version of a high world. Okay. How do I actually test that?
How quickly they recover from adversity, apparent adversity. So if they have like an accident or financial loss or I don't know, some everyday calamity that we would see as a calamity, that they would not be unaffected by it, but their recovery from it.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah. That's an excellent. So this is our own measure. So how quickly I recover, how quickly you recover, dictates how clear our minds are, and how little we're actually not, how much we've actually solved the problem of not falling to our own reality.
I think in psychiatry, if you advertise reality, you're living in your own world.
Right. That's very true. So psychiatry can back up Vedanta in the sense of pratibhasika, because pratibhasika is just extremely rigid personal reality. And it is so strong that it totally covers, superimposes itself over this objective world. That's very possible. Okay, revision. The stula sharira, the physical body, is strictly the Anandamaya Kosha. The sukshma sharira, the subtle body, is not only your mind, your intellect. What's the mind? What? Feeler of emotions. What's the intellect?
Discriminations.
What else is the intellect?
Decisions. Discriminating.
Yeah. Good. Yeah. Thinking, solving, calculating. And the karana sharira is only experienced in deep sleep. You do not experience karana sharira in this world except through the effects of karana sharira. Because remember, all of our samskaras are in karana sharira. So what do I mean by this? Don't look. When you say, oh, I have an idea. So we said, I have an idea. But what came before that? Yeah, but we don't even know about that. All we know is, a thought appears in front of me, and then I share the thought. So I have an idea. I have
potential power.
Yeah, I have idea. So all we ever talk about is this section. We can't see what caused this for me to say this. So this is what karana sharira is. That which stores these impressions which cause me to be in a certain way. And it is not, speaking of karana, it is not strictly or not specifically accurate to say that karana sharira is equal to Anandamaya Kosha. Here's why. Remember, I still asked this question at the beginning. I'm getting back to it. Because the Anandamaya Kosha can be experienced also in the waking and the dream state. However, what I just said about the Karana Sharira, it cannot be experienced in the waking and the dream state. Now you're going to probably confused now. What do I mean by experienced? How is Anandamaya Kosha experienced? We talked about...
So experience that experience of, oh, I have an idea, just that...
Yeah.
That triggering...
That's triggering, yeah.
That triggering is...
And it's going
an experience of your Karana Sharira.
Yeah. So it triggers...
Or your Anandamaya Kosha. One of those.
So the triggering is relating to the Karana Sharira. The cause. Something poked me and I don't know what poked me. That's Karana Sharira.
Right.
The joy that I get after being poked, if I do something, that's Anandamaya Kosha, because it is that which gives us the joy.
So it's a feeling.
I'm not going to answer that because
no,
it's
very interesting.
Yeah, because we're going to talk about Anandamaya.
Last time.
Huh? It's beyond the Sattva-raja and Tamaguna.
Because that's the reflection part of it, isn't it?
We're going to get to that section now. I'm not going to skip ahead. So, okay, look, put it this way, summary. Karana Sharira is the source of Anandamaya Kosha. So, Karana Sharira, so the Anandamaya Kosha is the Karana Sharira because it depends on the Karana Sharira. But the Karana Sharira is not the Anandamaya Kosha. For example, the mud house is the mud. But the mud is not the mud house because the mud is so much more than the mud house. So the mud is the source of the mud house, and the mud is independent of the mud house, but the mud house depends on the mud. The Anandamaya Kosha isn't just happiness of Karana Sharira. Pause. Why does it implies what? The Karana Sharira is the source of Anandamaya Kosha. Okay? Isn't just happiness of Karana Sharira, but also happiness of Priya, Moda, Pramoda. That means Anandamaya Kosha isn't just the happiness of ignorance, right, that we experience in deep sleep, but also it is the happiness that we also get in the waking and the in the dream state. Whereas Karana Sharira is only experienced fully where? In deep sleep. Example. Okay, we know this. We see an object that I like. Now you see an object, and suddenly we're happy. Yay. And then we grab it. We're closer to it, and then we got 2 yays. That's moda. And then we fully experience it, right? We finally eat the chocolate. We see the chocolate, step 1. We buy the chocolate, step 2. We eat the chocolate. That's the best joys that we can get because we get to indulge in it. So that's these 3 conditions which are that we all go through. So now, why are we sharing this? So you can discriminate and see your own thought processes, not to fall for them, because this is part of rejecting or saying this is not I. Okay, Karana Sharira is not the Anandamaya Kosha, as I said, but the Anandamaya Kosha is the Karana Sharira because it depends upon it. And we call it Anandamaya Kosha because it is always associated with joy. Yeah, the Anand. Now, a further analysis into the 3 states because it's going to include 3741 from Panchadashi. So we're going to now talk about the 3 states and specifically the deep sleep, because to see what deep sleep is will help you more to discern who I am, who you are, even more clarity. You'll see how that is true. So in the waking state right now, we're completely identified with the gross body. I am a man. I'm saying, can you say that in a dream? Have you ever said that in your dream? That you're a woman or a man? Right. Because to say I'm a man or I'm tall or I'm short, you need to have a physical body for that. But in the physical it's lacking the dream, so we don't say that. Okay. Dream state. When the jiva is specifically identified with their subtle body, then they are in their dream state. This is why in the dream, all of your ideas are so much more exaggerated. Right? Did you ever notice that you may like someone here in this waking state, but in the dream state, you know, there's honesty there, right? It really comes out. So our intentions about people really come out in the dream state because we are completely identified with our own thoughts, our samskaras. That's why we say, I think the car is going too fast. That means that's my thought. I think the girl is pretty. That's another thought. It's all coming out of, it's exposing what? My thoughts. People are generally kind or unkind. All of that exposes my container of thoughts. So therefore, the dream, as I keep saying, is an extremely good indicator what's up there, what's in our minds. Yeah. Because we can hide it easily in the waking state, but we're completely exposed in the dream state. So therefore, there is validity in, dream work. Okay, deep sleep state. This is when the jiva is identified with the causal body, and it's defined as I am still ignorant of who I am. If you could speak in deep sleep, what will we say? I don't know who I am. Well, you can't do that because you're never mind. Remember, we don't say I didn't know who I was. Why can you not define deep sleep like that? I didn't know who I was in deep sleep. Is that deep sleep?
That's right, memory.
Huh? No. Yeah, because to say that, it implies I'm saying it from the waking state. So that will be a mistake. Okay, deep sleep, for example, is comparing a metaphor. So suppose you're going to work and tired, end of the day. We come home and we finally put our work down. We just want to relax. And then we just want to fall asleep. I am tired of all of my energy. I've done what I had to do. And then I'm just now ready, after my prarabdha karma for the day has exhausted, I'm now ready to go into total relaxation. So that's what deep sleep is like. That's why we just let everything go when we sleep. It's like, I've done what I need to do for today. Now go back into myself. Okay, now where does happiness come from in deep sleep? The happiness that we experience?
No mind, no problems.
Yeah, that will summarize what we're going to read.
Could you say from ignorance?
Huh?
Could you say it comes from ignorance?
Where does happiness come from in deep sleep? And then Adrian answered, no minds, no problems. But that still doesn't explain where does deep sleep come from.
The mind when you're awake.
No, we're talking about deep sleep.
From Karana Sharira.
Okay. Yeah, but Karana Sharira is pure Tamaguna, so it cannot come from Tamaguna. The happiness that we experience in deep sleep comes from the self. From the self. Yeah. Because the nature of the self is fullness, Ananda. And that's how experienced as happiness. Okay, now because the mind intellect is withdrawn during sleep, therefore they're not infringing upon, they're not overlapping Atman. And thus we experience happiness. So the happiness that we feel in deep sleep is entirely owing to, as Adrian said, absence of the infringing agent in whose presence it covers the reflection of the joy which Ananda and Atman is.
So that's the difference in the type of happiness you would feel from the senses relative to the different sort of happiness you feel.
We'll get to that now, because even happiness from the senses there is no such thing as joy coming from anything in the world of mithya. There is no joy in mithya. Okay, is that clear?
This is fine.
All joy comes in one sentence from the self. Now, why do we experience joy when we satisfy those three conditions? Moda, pramoda. Okay, why do we get joy?
Because we're temporarily full.
Excellent. We've temporarily what? Suppressed,
relieved of
the infringing agent, the mind, and because of its absence in that short time, we get to then experience ourselves as joy. But then what do we link that joy to? To the object. We make a mistake and then we go chase the object again. Okay. But the joy came entirely because for a moment I suppressed my agitations of wanting, and because it was fulfilled in that short time, I was able to, then the mind went into a state of flatness. And what does flatness do? Fully reflects the sunlight. Before that, the flatness was absent. It was like all moving like a, water that's rippling. So therefore you couldn't reflect the ever shining joy that is always shining on our minds. Yeah. So again, in summary, all joy comes from the self, and it's only experienced when there is stillness of the infringing agent, the mind. Now, why can't we verbalize deep sleep accurately in deep sleep? Because the instrument which verbalizes, which assesses an experience, which looks at it, is missing. It's absent. So we can't then go, oh, wow, deep sleep, there's no objects. Man, I'm so free. Because there's no mind to even put that inquiry, to start that inquiry. And that is why it's, okay, I will just use this example. It's like saying the first time you taste the food, right? You can't decide, do I like this or do I not like this? You know that experience? Like you go to a new country, a new cuisine you taste, and can't quite decide. And then after some time, what happens? You make a decision. You either like it or you don't. But how did you make that decision? With the mind instrument. Now that mind which is able to decide is missing in deep sleep, which is why even in the waking state, after waking, we cannot make up our minds, what is deep sleep really? How do I describe deep sleep? Is it our experience? It's so hard to describe deep sleep. Even the happiness, when we say happiness, it's like, what do you mean by happiness? For me it's darkness, for me it's emptiness, for me it's void, for me it's general contentment, for me I can't even say anything. Why? Because there is no mind to assess it during deep sleep.
But if the mind could, it would say it was blissful.
Yeah.
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 So is that an inference that it's blissful?
Is it what?
Do we infer, does the wisdom infer that it's blissful?
No, it's remembrance.
Okay.
And we will get to this part now. In 3 paragraphs. People think deep sleep is inference. It just covers what you brought up. Okay, that's an objection, okay? So the objection is, comes up often. No, deep sleep is, because I went to sleep at 11 p.m. and I woke up at 6 a.m. and that space, that's 7 hours, there was, that time there, so therefore I slept. That's their conclusion. But we know this is not how people evaluate whether they slept. They evaluate how they slept how? By the fact they remember sleeping. It's more of a memory of a lack of suffering. So it's a memory. So cessation of suffering. In contrast to the place of waking, as soon as they wake up, there's so many problems. In contrast to those problems, the memory of having none of those problems, then on basis of that, I then establish sleep is blissful. But notice how you're able to do that based on the contrast. That means obviously I have to be the experiencer of deep sleep, which is what it's going to say now here. Vedanta's response to this objection is, because you're remembering of deep sleep, right now it means you must have experienced it. Because I only remembers what I experienced. You never remember what someone else experienced. You always remember what you experienced. So the experiencer is always the rememberer. And what do we say about deep sleep? I remember I slept. So the fact that I remember that, despite the mind being absent and the body being absent, the fact that I remember that obviously means that I don't need this body, this mind, to continue living. Now, is deep sleep a thought? It's going to get a little confusing, but we'll clarify that. Yes, it is a thought, but not a thought of the mind. So it is a subtle thought called abhava vritti, which means thought of nothingness, nothing specific. So deep sleep can be described as a thought. Now, what is a thought?
It starts and it finishes. It starts and it finishes.
What else?
Experience.
More ideas?
Experience.
It's like a product of the mind.
Okay, product. More keywords. What is a thought?
Becomes a feeling.
Thought is a feeling.
It's actually what a message.
You could say three gunas. You can say object. Thought is an object. What else is a thought? Thought is something that is known. So, what is deep sleep? A thought. What is a thought? A known object. So, a known object of what? A known object of nothing in particular. That's why it's nothing. See, to say object, right? It's something. It's a thought of something. But you also have a thought of nothing. So now don't confuse. See, it's still a thought, except one thought has contents within it and another thought doesn't have any contents. But the thought is still there. So what is deep sleep? A thought, nevertheless. It just doesn't have anything in it. Okay, when the mind holds an object, it is also called a thought that I just explained. It holds an object. So now you're obviously thinking, okay, are you talking about a mind thought? Is deep sleep a thought of the mind?
No.
No? Yeah, because if it was the mind, then you would know what deep sleep is like. You could be able to describe it. So it is a thought, but thought means what? That which the I knows of. Not necessarily the mind, but it knows of something. And what is that something? An experience of absence of objects.
You can't have thoughts without the mind. If there's no mind, there's no thought.
Yeah, so this is good. So that's in the waking and dream, but this is a thought beyond the mind. So remember, thought, you're thinking now thought, linking it with the mind. That's our mistake. Remember, that's why I asked you the question, what does thought mean? Not only does it mean a thought of the mind, but also it means an object or something that is known, and known experience.
The self is experienced.
Exactly. So in other words, abhava vritti is a known experience of nothing. Why? Because the I is still present. So even if the I is, even if the mind is not there, the point is the I. If the mind is not there, the I is still present, and because it's still present, it then is able to identify or validate the experience of nothing, and we call that abhava vritti. Okay, and also we cannot call this abhava vritti, which means thought of nothingness, the mind, because it is too subtle for the mind. Just like your vasana or samskara is too subtle to pick up. All we pick up is this. We don't pick up this. Like just Rani said, what caused her to say Because you didn't go but she did, right? So that's what we mean, the karana sharira. There's a certain vasa samskara that instigates us to do what we do. Like, why am I moving my hands this way and not, sitting like upright right now? All that because of the karana sharira is controlling how this person has done it before. Okay.
But when we see these triggers, that's our self experiencing.
Yeah, we're always experiencing our karana sharira flooding our vasanas every moment.
Is that why you can't remember deep sleep? Because you can only recall and remember something, not nothing.
We remember deep sleep because on the basis of there was nothing, then based on that I say I slept. We don't remember it using the mind, we remember it based on this abhava vritti, which is an experience of nothing.
Lack of something.
Yeah. Lack of objects, lack of experience. Actually, lack of experience, that will not be accurate. It is an experience, but it's an experience of nothing. So abhava vritti can also be translated into a known experience, with or without the mind. There'll be one more definition that should clarify abhava vritti. Okay, now, in other words, so in deep sleep, all there is abhava vritti and the self. Obviously, the self has to be there, otherwise you won't even remember the deep sleep. And this vritti gets its happiness from, as always, the self. Meaning the always reflecting, or the always shining, that should be crossed out, the always shining reflection of self, or the reflection of self, falls on abhava vritti. And what is abhava vritti? Another definition is tama guna, associated with the individual's karana sharira. So, you, the self, are shining on what? Your jiva's karana sharira, which is made up of tama guna. That's why you remember it, because it is linked to your jiva status. It's not linked to someone else's jiva status. So look, to put it this way, imagine every single person here has a certain causal body, and we do, right? Individual causal body. One eye shines on all the causal bodies. But when this person goes to sleep, they wake up and they remember that there was no expression. And who had no expression? Who had no experience? I did, not you, right? Because it's my karana sharira. But you also say the same thing in your case. You had experience of nothing. I want to clarify, is that clear?
I think so, yeah.
So the length of nothing differs from each individual, isn't it?
Huh?
The length of nothing, deep sleep, differs from each individual.
Yeah.
According to their...
Yeah, according to your sleep, to your physical sleep.
Okay.
Yeah, you can have nothing for 1 hour if you're, night shift. Okay, but it's the same nothing for everyone. Yeah.
In that diagram, you've got jiva reflected awareness for the subtle body.
Yeah.
Is there some sort of reflection for the causal body, being this abhava vritti?
Yeah, reflective awareness is actually the entire universe is reflected. Because the entire universe is just an upadi, a reflecting medium for the self.
Yeah.
But it's focused there specifically because most of the experience, happens in the subtle body. Okay. But it's generally reflected everywhere. Not generally, it is reflected everywhere.
Yes.
Meaning the quieter the mind is, the quieter your mind is in life, the less agitated. The more reflection of self is shining onto the mind, thus greater joy is felt. So that's a simple formula. The happier we are, what's the reason for that? The more cheerful you are, what's the reason for that?
You're not feeling agitated.
Huh?
Less distractions.
Yeah, less distraction. That means your lifestyle is conducive with peace. Something that's peaceful, doesn't allow agitations from the TV, from the media, from other people to be annoyed and so on. It's simple as that. So all of joy that happens is coming from the one same self from everyone, but the only difference between, let's say, yourself, who is cheerful, and someone else who may not be so cheerful is, it's the same self. Your one self that's making your body cheerful is the same self that is making them aware of their life. But they're not experiencing you. And who are you? The self. They're not experiencing you. Why? Because their bucket of water is very tamasic, it's very dirty, it's very so that's the only difference. It's all about the mind. That's it.
And they're feeling their attachment to their agitations, their own agitations.
That makes it a lot more even
identifying.
That makes it actually intensifies
the I becomes associated with the actual agitation.
That's right. So it intensifies everything. So this should be another statement that kind of lifts a lot of confusion, because there is no such thing as Ramana is more special than you, or Buddha is more special than you. It's the one same self. The only difference is who has done more work on their mind, sincerely more work. Yeah, to not only purify the mind, but also to introduce notions which coincide and correspond with reality. And those notions are Vedanta, of course. That's what we're teaching you. Because you see, here's the thing: you can have a very pure mind, right? Easy. But what if the notions are totally off? What if my notions are, God is out there, but I've got a clear mind, or angels are there to save me. I need to pray to some archangels or something, but I've got a clear mind. So see what happens? It doesn't matter how pure the mind is. If the notions are false, then it's still going to cause this constant chasing for something, which ironically, the chasing in itself is going to agitate the mind.
It just brings it back to duality.
Yeah. When I finally get what I want, when I finally get married, mind stops being completely agitated in that short moment. In this way, maximum happiness is experienced. This is why a wedding can be extremely happy, because I'm getting exactly what I want in those couple of hours or minutes, right? Because all of my dreams are being fulfilled in that short time. But then, see, the thing is, once we go home, and then you discover that he, has a certain way of, let's say, he wants to open the door, keep the door open, but you want to close the door so that the sound doesn't come in from the outside the house. So now that becomes another obstruction too, adds more ripples to my mind. So now I'm back into mode of unhappy. So that means I only got my small, agitation-free moment, a couple of hours during the wedding. So in the metaphor, the more agitated the mind is, when it finally gets what it wants, the more happy it gets. Just like the longer I hold toilets, the more I am happy when I detach from the agitating cause. In other words, it's the same thing, right? When you've been holding it for such a long time, then when there's a detachment, it's a metaphor,
Relief, yeah.
Then, it's like relieving.
That's bliss.
Each to his own bliss.
Private bliss. Summary of this cause of happiness. When the mind quietens, the Ananda, that is the nature of the self, falls onto the mind. It's always been falling onto the mind. It's always been, shining on the mind. And then as a result of that quietness, more reflection of happiness is known. Now, logic for why happiness comes from the self and not the object. That means from the subject. When I say self, I'm talking about what? The subject, the knowing agent, the knowing principle, the consciousness principle. There is only subject-object. That's the basic inquiry in all Upanishads. In every single book you will ever read in all your life, it will always be between what's the subject and what's the object. What's the knower and what's the known. We know some object doesn't give equal intensity to joys to all people. I may find a particular food tasty and gives me a lot of joy, but you don't. So on the basis of that, that means the joy is not in the object, because if the joy was truly in that object, whoever you give that food or that object to, everyone will be equally happy. But that's not the case. So this means on the basis of that, object is not equal to happiness at all. It is completely subjective, which then leaves the source of joy to be the only remaining factor. We've just negated object. What remains? Subject. So therefore you are the source of all joys in your life. And if you're not experiencing, if your mind is not experiencing joy, or as much as one would like, the only reason for that is because there's still some stuff that's obstructing. It's not personal. It actually doesn't, it's not even bothering. If you disassociate it from the mind, then you won't even have the need to purify the mind, actually. That's the only difference. So a jnani may have a mind that a worldly person would want to improve, but why is a jnani not improving their mind, his or her mind? Because
They're disassociated.
yeah, it's not my mind. It's like, do I want to clear your mind, Adrian? No, I couldn't care less. You don't want to clear my mind. So then why am I clearing someone else's mind? Because the I is associated with someone else. Right? That's why. It doesn't mean you don't have to, because the irony is now, if I don't purify the mind, then I will never get a still mind, and I need still mind for what? Contemplation, for inquiry. So yes, you don't have to purify the mind, but you need to purify the mind. Okay, objection. Happiness in deep sleep comes from a state of nothingness. So we're happy because there's nothing in deep sleep. And we just put a full stop there. That's the error. So we have to correct that error. It comes from an agitated free. The mind, the distracting agent is missing. In which way? All that remains is that which is always reflecting on an entire universe in and through, which is the self. And the nature of the self is Ananda. Yeah. What about rock and roll type of happiness? You know, rock and roll, or a lot of movements, dance, like the wild, people do extreme sports. That also brings happiness. What's that? Where does that come from?
Adrenaline?
The same thing. It's
Well, you
just
say it releases self.
agitation's blood.
Okay, but let's say with adrenaline. What is adrenaline a response to?
It's a chemical response to
A chemical. See, adrenaline gives sort of a joyful feeling. But what do we say? The only principle of joy is the self. But because there's three bodies operating, that joy, that formless joy, has to be grossified. How? By releasing chemicals from the brain. So adrenaline or dopamine or serotonin are just simply providing instruments or providing agents which give the body the ability to feel the joy of the self.
And that can only that will neutralize itself very quickly. Because if it doesn't, your adrenal glands will pack up and you'll die. Because people who overexpose themselves to adrenaline end up in serious
because then they put too much rajas onto they make their senses tired. So we can also manipulate it by going against the natural ways of release. That means that even if then it's very hard to experience joy if the chemicals are overabused, like those MDMA, who abuse that. So it totally, exhausts the physical capacity to release more dopamine. This means even if they hear about God and they're free, it's still impossible to get happy. So what I'm saying is, you see how all the three bodies are connected? How they're actually just providing a response to the joy of the self. But if the body is defective, then even though the person may have knowledge, I am free, only to the body inability to produce chemicals which resemble that freedom, then there is no particular happiness. But it shouldn't really matter, because if the person is trying to feel good in their body, it means what?
They're ignorant.
ignorant, still ignorant. So we need to even get past the this kind of talk. Okay, finally, the Anandamaya Kosha. Or we'll just not say, we'll just say the Ananda, the happiness. We know that happiness is not the three gunas. Why? Because Ananda is the nature of Satchit Ananda. Satchit Ananda is free of the gunas. But also, Priya, Moda, Pramoda, you know those three steps, I get it, I enjoy it, is also not Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. Why? Because they're just words defining the experience that the body feels when there is no agitation of the mind, and that experience is what? The joy. But what's the joy? Ananda. What's Ananda? The self. So neither of them are SRT, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, because they're just simply a response to a pure mind that has no agitations. Questions before moving on?
So just on the adrenaline discussion,
Yeah.
just say you jump out of a plane skydiving,
Yeah.
you have that adrenaline rush.
Yeah.
That adrenaline is from the self, as in not the adrenaline itself,
Yeah.
but it's, you're saying it's sort of the mind is still, or...
Yeah, okay. Adrenaline can be also confused with... adrenaline isn't always joyful.
No, it could be.
Yeah.
Because you see a snake, your adrenaline goes
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
Yeah,
So I guess skydiving as a joyful experience.
Yeah.
If you're falling down and parachute, you know, and you're feeling that joy.
Why are you feeling that joy? Because all you're thinking is about, right? There's no time to think about my life.
Yeah.
So because I'm not thinking about the obstructions, then the ever shining self finally gets to, you know, be experienced in the body as what? As joy. And then we go, oh, I want to do it again.
Yeah.
But why do we say I want to do it again? Because I want to regain that momentary freedom from my own problems. So then we associate, we become a skydiver basically.
Yeah.
So whole life is driven on the basis of re-experiencing temporary bursts of freedom from the agitations of the mind. Which means we don't have to chase extreme sports to this. Just purify your mind using meditation, japa, chanting, and many more methods we will cover in Aparosha Nubhuti. And then, you know, you're remaining as happy as anyone without doing these dangerous things or these things that basically waste a lot of money.
I mean, like, I like the fact that he said actually dancing and music is a joyful thing.
It doesn't mean you can't do it. It just means you're not
Yeah, good.
That meditating when you go skydiving.
Doesn't go anywhere.
Double the value.
Yeah. Dancing also, because, you know, in dancing...
Doesn't go anywhere other than in the dance.
Yeah, it's like you're just with yourself, right? You're just totally lost in your own... It's like meditation in itself.
Yeah.
So that's also meditation, like skydiving or meditation.
The skydiving, don't call it meditation because
For some people,
you
it is.
heightened your anxiety state before you dive. No matter how many people they look at it as joy.
Well, can be.
It was with the right frame of reference,
It
right?
was the most amazing thing,
But you didn't want to do it again? You did it again?
I did, but I haven't ever done
It's
it
very
again.
agitated.
I guess in
joy
some ways I
dancing.
knew it was
Yeah,
temporary.
good point.
Yeah.
Rani just said that it can be agitating also, mixed with a lot of rajas.
It's heightened anxiety when you're diving.
Because
Any challenging sport.
good, because it makes me now wonder, would a person who's got a generally sattvic life prefer to go skydiving?
No.
I know I certainly wouldn't, because I know what's going to happen. The mind's going to get excited, but excited always means rajaguna. And a sattvic person does not resonate with rajaguna because it is painful.
Yeah,
It was a long time ago,
fear.
Okay, that's all right.
Just 20 years ago.
Well, that lines up with the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system, because the sympathetic nervous system is what releases the chemicals which give you the rajasic experience, and the parasympathetic nervous system is like when the brakes go back on, bring it back down again and connect.
I see. So even for that, there's an instrument to address both sides.
Yeah.
Okay. See, that's the beauty of the body, how everything needs to be built to experience both sides. Then we covered verse 44. And we talked about next section. We're here now. That's done. Tat Tvamasi. The word tat, that. What's the first question is, what is, because this is a Mahavakya. Mahavakya is a great statement that basically sums up all of the scriptures. So if you don't want to study the scriptures, you just know the essence of the Mahavakya, and that shortcuts the process. Of course, there needs to be, explanation to do that. So the word tat in English means that. But what does that refer to? And, we can say that. Okay, that's fine. But that refers to specifically is when Brahman is conditioned by, Brahman is what? The ultimate highest, you are Brahman, the ultimate highest reality, pure consciousness. When Brahman is conditioned by the material cause, it's called Upadana Karanam, and the efficient cause, that is the intelligent cause, that's called Nimitta Karanam, I mentioned this in the Gita, that means by Tamaguna and Sattvaguna. So what is Tamaguna? Material cause. Sattvaguna, efficient / intelligent cause. When Brahman is apparently conditioned by these two causes, then we give that the name Tat. Okay, so what is Tat?
When Brahman.
Yeah, when Brahman is apparently conditioned by the material cause and the intelligent cause. And these two causes belong to the three gunas. And the three gunas, if you put one word for it, according to the Panchadashi, Prakriti. Or Maya, you can also say Maya.
There was some talk about when babies, the first sound babies utter is that.
Good one. Okay, so when we say that, that includes not only Brahman, but I need to understand Brahman apparently conditioned by the intelligent and the material cause. Now, just the fact that it's apparent means it's not actually. So I have to include this knowledge before I can speak that. Otherwise, my knowledge will be impartial. Because then you'll be wondering, but how? But what about this world? I can't ignore this world. But see, now that I've explained it, that Brahman apparently conditioned by the material cause, which we're experiencing, and the intelligent cause, which is the nature of how everything works, right? Birds and animals all interacting together. So I'm not ignoring that anymore. Now I can say that. You see the difference? Between just, kind of like Brahman.
Mm.
So when you say that, the material and the intelligent efficient, does that also does that exclude Brahman, the ultimate reality?
Good. So in other words, when you say that, I'm keeping that in mind. There is indeed this power, intelligent cause and material cause, but that is going through straight to Brahman. So it's actually referring to Brahman, but I'm not ignoring that piece of knowledge that is also part of this reality that the body is in. Okay.
Because otherwise you would say, I'm Brahman, the ultimate reality, but I'm not this then.
Exactly. Excellent.
You have to include everything.
And who's the person that's saying it? Obviously a physical character. In order to say I am that, I need a voice, I need Ishwar, I need a material cause, I need intelligent cause. So I can't just arrogantly state I am Brahman by ignoring the fact how is the jaw even moving and how is the vocal cords working to say that? That's why we include this piece of knowledge. Is that clear? That. Now next word. Tvam, thou. I practice my thous. What it said is to say thou. Okay, the Tvam is the desirous jiva, result of the pure sattva guna, contaminated by the raja and tama guna. So all it's saying is Tvam is the you that you are, that thou is referring to the jiva, which is a result of impure sattva guna. I think it says here malina sattva. Shankaracharya calls it malina, that means impure sattva guna. And the fact that it is indeed contaminated by Raja and Tamaguna, I keep that in mind. See, I'm again keeping that knowledge in mind. But thou, despite that fact, I'm referring to actually what? Brahman. I'll read. The result of being subjected and not free is that so, Jivatma. And he has to endure numerous desires unfulfilled. And the lack of fulfillment through objects is seen in endless activities we engage in to satisfy our lives. So we know just by the commercial activity in the world, it's very strong, that instantly gives away what? That every person who's buying and spending all day long in their whole life is not happy. So they're what? A jiva. A desire leads one into karmas, into actions, and they tie down the jiva into constant fulfillment of those actions, which then the jiva ends up accumulating punya and papa karma. That means merits and demerits. And once I acquire merits and demerits, then I receive an experience that I have to then undergo. I have to experience that. So, what is punya papa? A result. What caused punya papa? Desires. What caused desires? Actions. Yeah. What was the motivating factor for those actions?
Causal body.
Vasanas. And why are vasanas still owning me? Why are they still controlling my life?
Because you haven't exhausted from the body.
Yeah. Yeah. If I take Sylvana's approach, then hopeless. I need like this life because
I haven't. I'm associated with mind.
Giving reality to my mind, even if they're from past life. The fact is, I have not said no. I have not firmly stood and said no. I know there's a lot of desires. I do want to go out in the world, but I have not firmly stood and taken a stand and said no. Enough is enough. I've done this endless lifetimes. This is the time when I'm going to get serious, and I may suffer, right, in the first 2 or 3 years by not getting what I want. But just like if you fast, when you fast on the first day, it's very painful. And the second day is also. But on the third, fourth, fifth day, it's actually not so painful. In the same way, when a person says no, it is painful, guaranteed. But very soon, it becomes extremely easy. Right? So that has not been done. And as a result, the person then gets repeated life over and over again. Because they've not matured up and said enough is enough. That Brahman, upon which the previous verse, tat, that, we superimposed omniscience, all purity, wisdom, and omnipotence of the macrocosmic proportions, tat, stop there. So, Brahman becomes the all-knowing, the omniscient, the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the wise. Why? All of these that I just said are features. Features of what? Sattva guna. So I'm just going to draw this out. So Brahman. And then, through its power of Maya, okay, it creates the world. Clear?
Yeah.
When I say, now there's a little person there in the world, and that person says that. What are they doing? They're addressing Maya, and they're pointing straight to Brahman.
They're experiencing Maya, pointing through to Brahman.
Yeah, because Maya causes them to say that. And also when I say now though you, right, you are, that's the second word, then who is saying that? The jiva. The jiva is also a result of Maya, 3 gunas. But the fact is, it all also points to Brahman. So it all goes back to the original. And that Brahman, you are. What's ignorance? Taking this to be real, ignoring this fact. Right? That's why we say, I'm not experiencing Brahman. Well, you always are experiencing Brahman. How? How are you always experiencing Brahman?
You're aware.
Yeah, as yourself.
Conscious.
And what's the nature of yourself? As Bharata said, conscious awareness. That's all there is to it. Okay, is Tat clear? That. Thou, is that clear? Okay. Next one. Asi is the one same Brahman light shining on Tat. The one same Brahman light shining on Tat. What is Tat? Maya, the three gunas. And Tvam, which is the Raja Tamaguna. That's why I said Brahman is dominantly Sattva guna. No, Maya is dominantly Sattva guna, and then you are, the person is dominantly Tama and Raja guna. And the one same light that is illuminating both is Brahman.
When you say the one same light, what you mean is the one awareness of both. So,
yeah, the one same truth.
Yeah.
The causeless cause of the universe, the essence of all that is. Okay, with the rejection of the threefold prakriti, that which is the three gunas, that produces all the mutual contradictions, the world of confusion, basically. So what creates confusion? The three gunas. The indivisible Satchit Ananda, that is Brahman, alone remains in both that and thou. This is indicated in the meaning of Tattvamasi. So the essence of creation is both in Ishvara and in and through Ishvara and in and through the Jiva. That essence is called Brahman. And the Asi refers to that essence, which is the truth of both, the ocean and the wave. Ocean stands for what? Ishvara, and the wave stands for the Jiva. But the commonality between both is the same water, the same H2O. With the rejection of the threefold prakriti, that means the three gunas, the literal meaning of Asi relates to the upadi. Upadi means conditioning, or the material which lets the reflection shine, of Ishvara and Jiva. The upadis are the medium through which the light of Brahman is reflected. The upadis in both cases are made up of various combinations of Sattva, Raja, and Tamaguna. So this is an important statement, because what it's saying is both Ishvara is an upadi on the macrocosmic, and Jiva is also a upadi on the microcosmic. The point is they're both upadis, both mediums, or actually just one medium, which reflects the one source, the one truth of Brahman. And the essence of those upadis is the same one consciousness. Okay, the ultimate conclusion is the light of Brahman falling on both the upadis, that of Ishvara as well as Jiva, remember they're both upadis, there is now no contradiction. The sentence makes sense. The equal sign is fine. So the implied meaning is accepted as Supreme Brahman. So what we got out of this statement, this Mahavakya, is number one, do not discard the reality of the Vyavaharika when stating, I know who I am. You have to include the knowledge. What makes this body say that? The three gunas. Because without the three gunas, I cannot think, I cannot discern, I cannot apply logic, I cannot apply rationale to come to the equation. So I keep that in mind, and while I keep that in mind, then one can claim they are the truth. Otherwise, they're making a subtle mistake that will then break down the equation later on in life when they get challenged through, some book or a different point of view. Okay, questions about Tattvamasi? That you are, that thou art.
It's still
difficult for me to grasp it.
What specifically? Which part? Tat, Tvam, or Asi?
Well, I guess Tat and Tvam, they've just to remember the sentence behind them, like Tat is Brahman, conditioned by material
and the intelligent.
Intelligent. I don't know, just.
That's a statement of fact.
Yeah, I just feels.
Okay, I just use a simple metaphor then. Just use a simple metaphor. Just use that wave, okay? I'm sure you can relate to that. Just imagine a wave, and then you put two eyes on the wave, and a mouth. And then you put two eyes and a mouth on another wave. And one wave has the exact same constituents that the other wave has. They're basically just water. But one wave just fails to acknowledge that, right? They just fail to accept I am the same substance that inheres the entire creation, the entire universe. So one wave is skeptical, but the other wave just, through faith alone, accepts that. And because they accept that, there's no problems. But the other wave keeps on getting problems because even though they're the water, there's some resistance there. So what does the wave have to do? The one that's resisting. Keep inquiring to see how this is true for me. How is this actually the fact for myself? Even if others say, it doesn't matter what others say. Is it true for you?
The way I've always come to it before this was that is everything that can be objectified. Everything. And thou is essentially the awareness, the Brahmanness, or the unchanging, and then the art is the Am, is everything, is the universality of the Am.
No, they're both awareness, because the Tat is awareness.
Yeah. But there's more like the medium, when it's manifest, than that.
Yeah, the Tat is referring to the macrocosmic.
Yeah.
Ishvara, Tvam, microcosmic,
Yeah.
and As is referring to Brahman. So the truth of these two is Brahman.
Yeah.
Okay. Without this, both of these there's nothing to say. If I evaporate all the water in the ocean, there is neither the ocean nor the wave. So in other words, this is the ocean, this is the wave, but what do they all depend on? The water. So without the water, there is no Ishvara.
So what's the origin of the word asi there? What asi? What?
It's like the verb to be.
Yeah, well, that's what I always thought it was, but
No, you are.
okay.
Are what? Are the truth.
The arness, the isness, is Brahman.
Satchitananda. Yeah.
Is that what it's trying to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I haven't seen the form of that word in all this Sanskrit asi. I mean, it's.
Yes.
I've seen Tatvam asi, but I haven't seen throughout the whole representation of Sanskrit in the translation. But so it's just an isness, an amness.
Yeah. The isness, that is the commonality between the microcosmic and the macrocosmic.
I thought there's a lot of isness in both of those.
Yeah, but they're only borrowing their isness only to asi, only to consciousness. Okay. So all we're doing is addressing the three realities, which pratibhasika, that means the vyavaharika, we can also say this is a mixture of Vyavaharika and Pratibhasika because some people are in their own worlds. And this is Paramarthika, the absolute reality. So it's just including the three realities together and saying that these two realities entirely depend on Satyam. This is Mithya. This is all Mithya. This is Satyam. Okay, we'll take let's see where we are now.
The other Mahavakya is Brahman is Satyam and Mithya is Brahman is
Satyam,
Brahman is Satyam, and Jagat is Mithya.
Yeah.
So that's
exactly. So that exactly coincides. That means the world. That, as Martin said, anything that is objectified is the world.
Yeah.
So even Ishvara is objectified because we keep saying God, God, God all day long. God is beautiful, God is this, God is that. Just the fact that you can objectify God means what? You are beyond that which you're objectifying, which means that which is being described depends on what? The consciousness which validates the description, which validates the idea that's being proposed. So now even Ramana said very clearly, the person even has to drop this notion of God. Even that is something that people can fall into, but you have to get out of that too. Because to say God is there and I am this Brahman here, right? That's what dividing Satya Mithya. There's only self. One self that is the truth of all. And that self is this. So you don't even say I, you just say this. But when you say this, also includes everything. Nothing's excluded. Okay, so the Tat Tvamasi will further be supported with this example. Verse 47. Reading. In the sentence, this is that Devadatta. This and that refer to different times, places, and circumstance. When the particulars of this and that are eliminated, that means when the non-essential variables are eliminated, the Devadatta remains as their common basis. So, example. Suppose that you see a baby once, someone in your family, and then you don't see them for 5 years. And then finally you meet together and then you see this young boy and you go, this is, and then you say their name, right? This is, my cousin, right? This is him? Are you surprised? Yeah. So, this is that, in other words, this is that person who I knew at that time. So what it's saying is the person has changed, right? The attributes, the features, the arrays of personality has changed, definitely. But the fact that you're still calling this is that, right? It means what? There's still a same person that you're referring to. So in that case, the this and that, right, is like this and that is referring to the same one common substratum, which is Brahman. And what's happening is when we say the statement, there 3 changes are taking place: the time, the changing place, and the circumstance. However, also the 4th change may be added, which is knowledge, because the knowledge of the baby changes to the knowledge of the young man now being received as the young man. So before I knew this person as a baby, now I know this person as a young man. But this person is still the same person.
But isn't it also true that every cell in the human body is different after a 7-year period? Every cell has changed.
Yeah, that's on the physical, the gross level that you refer to.
So it can't be possibly with the same person.
Yeah, but so that means when I say this, it's that means I'm looking through all of that, all of the changes of the physical, even their personality, because they were maybe a crybaby, right? But they were a whiner, but now they're sort of like a little bit playful, smiley. So I'm cutting straight through all of those personalities, those features, but I'm referring to the same that person, which I knew. So when all these changing factors are removed, what is left is the person Devadatta in this example. In the same way that Tat, that means that, is with reference to the material and efficient cause of this world, and Tvam, that means the Jiva, is the conditioning of the pure Sattva, the pure Ishvara, with Raja and Tama Guna. When the conditionings of Tat and Tvam are rejected, one discovers that Tat and Tvam both are nothing but Sat Chit Ananda. That's the basis of solving this equation, that indeed, right now, the person that's listening to this and the person that's speaking is that Sat Chit Ananda. We don't understand. The changes are different for all of us. Different personalities. One person looks like this, one knows this, one knows that. But at the end of the day, when you remove all of these attributes, all these variables, it is the same consciousness principle. And that consciousness principle, that you are, that's what it's referring to. Now let's apply this Devadatta to the Mahavakya Tat Tvamasi. Verse 48. Ishvara and Jiva are just clothes worn on Brahman. You were and always are free, even right now while listening to this. Verse. Maya and avidya, by superimposition on Brahman, create Ishvara and Jiva. So in other words, Sattva Guna superimposed on Brahman equals Ishvara, and Tama and Raja Guna superimposed on Brahman equals Jiva. When these illusory conditioning adjuncts are negated, the identity of Brahman and Jiva become evident as one same substratum, which is non-dual, infinite consciousness existence. That means when you both negate the non-essential variables of the three gunas, then what's left is the one consciousness. Now it's going to explain some more. Okay, we'll start with the obvious statement. Are your clothes yours? No, because we wear them. That's all we do. We replace them, we throw them away. No care. They get old, we throw them away. In other words, you remain the same regardless of the clothes that you wear. Okay, so Brahman remains the same regardless of the clothes, whether Brahman wears Sattva Guna or Raja Tama Guna. Brahman, you remain exactly as you always are and never will be other than that. This principle comes through very clearly when applied to Maya and Avidya. Maya and Avidya are just like clothes worn over the same Brahman. Point is, they are just clothes worn, and Satchidananda remains unaffected by the clothes he wears. So we take back this to a personal level. You are unaffected by any kind of problems that you may think you have. Okay, we understand those problems, but still, the truth is you're not affected by those problems. Putting on the outfit of Maya, Brahman looks regal and full of knowledge and wisdom. So we take on consciousness. When consciousness wears its Sattva Guna as a suit, then he looks like a very intelligent person. He is omniscient and omnipotent. He is kingly, awesome, a wonder to behold. What are we doing? What's the devotion, world of devotion doing? Constantly devoting to Brahman, because what it says here, he is kingly, awesome, a wonder to behold. I'm all day devoting to the ultimate, to the highest. I'm singing his glories. I am going to the temple, to the church. So what am I doing? I am devoting to the Brahman who is wearing clothes of Sattva Guna. So that means when we devote to Ishvara, we're devoting to... Yeah, but it depends on what we understand. If we don't understand the truth of Ishvara to be Brahman, then we're devoting to... Yeah, to the consciousness. That is, if you know the nature of Ishvara. If you don't, then you're referring to, by your devotion, to the lower nature, to the features. That's Saguna. So it means it always depends on what we know. Yeah. Okay, now when avidya is just the opposite. In the outfit of avidya, Brahman looks very insignificant. He is just as ignorant fool, being tossed like a boat in the ocean waters of this world. He knows very little about what forces are acting upon him. He or she has little power over his or her environment. Most importantly, he or she has no idea of one's true spiritual status. That's describing the jiva, right? They're being tossed around left and right by the winds of the world, pulled by their desires. Looking beneath the clothes of Brahman, we behold the same supreme truth, and we reject all influence that the garments may make on our judgments. So that's an instruction there. We reject or see through the influence that the garments. What is garments referring to?
Objects.
Your kosha. You're wearing 5 garments. Atman is wearing 5 garments. And so suppose we get influenced by our thoughts of, something that's discouraging, then we simply acknowledge that, step 1. And then 2, we ask, what does this belong to? What, of these 5 garments does this belong to? Okay, it belongs to the Manomaya Kosha. So on the basis of that, I can then say, not I. Right, so we're still first looking, what's the nature of this? What kosha does it belong to? And then we apply the Panchadasi. And how is Tattvamasi applied in life, or how does it actually apply in our day-to-day experience? We should not give importance to all the externalities of our condition in this world. What does this mean?
Give importance.
Yeah, don't give.
Don't get attached. Don't get distracted.
Yeah, okay, good. And don't take it to be too real. It may be real in the moment, but it's not ultimately real. And this can only be strengthened if you do this before. If a situation happens in life, and then we try to say this is not real, it's not going to work. Because it's too strong. That means the person has to first do this before strong situations in life happen. So suppose you lose a business and then it's like, oh, it's okay, this is not real. That's not going to be true because it's going to be so strong then. Right? So it means we have to start early. Okay, lest undergoing all the drama of the association of the world, we should, as spiritual aspirants, always bear in mind our spiritual identity as the supreme truth. Again, while going through the world, never forget your nature as supreme truth. That will lift us above day-to-day ups and downs, that alone. Keeping the mind on awareness, self-existence. That's all that we need to do. Anchoring ourselves in the truth, our boat will not be lost. It will, of course, get tossed about, but we will never become spiritual wrecks. This is the greatest teaching of the Mahavakya, of the Tattvamasi, that thou art. So that thou art is simply saying, keep your vision on the truth at all times, no matter what, and then still go through the world gladly. Okay, what's next? A particular doubt is raised as to whether self is savikalpa or nirvikalpa, with or without modification. Okay, what's going to happen now is we're done with the Tattvamasi. Now I want to cover the objection. And we're going to provide some strong logic why Brahman is a false reality. And then we have to then get out of that objection, because that's going to then help us to see, the truth even clearer. Because sooner or later what happens is you read a book from a different school, see the 6 schools of philosophy, and they all have very strong logic about their ways of looking at the world, but so does Vedanta. And some of them will say Brahman is not true, right? This consciousness is, for example, in the Buddhism, it's just flickering mind, it's just flickering constantly, and it appears like there's a flow of thoughts. So we have to address these, but in particular we'll address one that's not all of them, that a Nyaya will pose. Nyaya means a very strong logician, very identified with their intellect, but they're extremely good at finding faults with things. Right? So he's now going to pose this question. Okay. A cunning doubt. What does the word cunning mean? Clever. Tactfully clever. Right? There's a motive there. A cunning doubter, that means a nyayika, a logician, tries to demolish non-duality or Brahman. And he's going to ask a question to the Acharya. If the denoted object of that thou art, that means Brahman, so he's attacking Brahman, is with attributes, then it becomes unreal. Okay, so far he's saying the same thing that we're saying. If the denoted object, that means anything in this world, is with attributes, then it becomes unreal because it is mithya. So far we agree. Secondly, an object without attributes is neither seen nor is possible to conceive. Are you hearing the objection there? Mm-hmm. So what is he saying?
Doesn't exist.
Yeah. If Brahman is without attributes and cannot be perceived, then how can you then say that this reality exists? Because to say something exists, I need to see it. I need to know it. I need to, somehow grasp it.
But then it's objectifying it.
Yeah, but he doesn't know this at this point. And also to conceive, this word conceive, to conceive something, what are you conceiving with?
Mind.
Good. That's the word I was looking for. But the mind is also got what? Attributes. So this means for someone to arrive to the conclusion that Brahman is true, they had to arrive to that conclusion through a defective instrument, which is attribute-full. So how can an attribute-full instrument arrive to attributeless reality? That means even a jnani who claims to have solved the problem also was subject to using a flawed instrument, an instrument that is only bound to attributes. So how could they solve the problem if this Brahman, which you claim, is beyond attributes? Which means he's not beyond attributes. He's also another idea which you came up with your own mind. That's what we're building, that case. And this kind of objection is going to come from one of these schools. And I just wanted to show you the 6 schools of philosophy. The theistic is generally the one that does accept the Vedas. And the atheistic is the one that does not accept the Vedas. However, for example, the yoga school accepts the Vedas. However, they reject Brahman or they reject Ishvara. And the one that we're studying is Uttara Mimamsa. So the original name for Vedanta is Uttara Mimamsa. And what happened through the centuries, especially in the Brahma Sutra, Brahma Sutra was written at the time when Buddhism was dominating basically the Indian environment. And at that time, they had a lot of dialectics. They had to come together and see whose point of view is going to remain last. So if that means if I could not hold a conversation with you and you gave me some kind of a logic that I could not explain according to my school, then that would reduce the authority of the school that I come from, and I will have to then subscribe to your authority of school. So this used to happen for years and years. And Brahma Sutra used to specifically take Buddhism and address every single statement that they're making and then see how it cannot stand up against Vedanta. Because at that time, Buddhism was generally, very big. And one of those schools, there it is, four Buddhism schools, and they will all have their different views, and they will generally disagree with the entire theistic literature, not only Vedanta, but yoga also. Just looking in a different way. However, they do have a valid point of view still, right? So we're not gonna put them down. They're just different different way of looking at the world. Now the Nyayaka, that means the logician, starts as if he is in agreement with the Vedantin. He says, if the thing that you are considering perceptible or known is with attributes, that means savikalpa, then it must be an object of some kind and therefore becomes unreal. Because so far he is in agreement. You follow that? That means if this has attributes, right, it's apparently real, because where is it when I take it out? Right? So it's apparently real. But very soon we see that what he's really wanting to say is, but when we know that you hold Brahman to be attributeless, and if he really is attributeless, then I cannot see how you can indicate it through a sentence such as Mahavakya Tattvamasi. A sentence is merely words. How can words point to a thing which is attributeless? The Nyayaka, with this twist of logic, tries to ridicule the Mahavakya. In effect, he is saying that these Mahavakyas are simply glorified sentences, but they cannot have any power to indicate the truth, which is what they claim to do. That means they're just words, and they're made up, and they're trying to explain something that is not provable. And even the word tattvamasi, right, is attributes. So what are these words? They're empty. They're just attributeful words. He's almost saying the Mahavakyas are useless to indicate the truth. It all just adds up to nothing. So I suggest that you simply accept the reality has properties, then you can use tattvamasi to indicate it.
Bring back some duality.
Yeah. So what the doubter is saying is that the tattvamasi is pointing to a reality that you already know about, which is attributeful reality. It cannot point to anything that is beyond this reality, because you simply don't have any, because whatever ways you're attempting to know about a different reality is subject to attributes. Even to say it is attributeless, even that thought is what? An attribute. It's a thought. Even to say formless, or to feel formless, or to quote know formless, even the word know is also attributeful. So no matter how we look at it, we're stuck in the world of attributes. Mm-hmm. So what the Nyayaka is bringing is this objection specifically, that we can't simply understand the formless. It's impossible.
That's because they separate the Brahman from the individual.
Materialist.
They want to see Brahman outside, so they have attributes.
Yeah.
But we are, I mean, even to say a word or talk or breathe, everything is...
The consciousness.
Yes, they just don't get consciousness or awareness.
Well, that's rejecting God, the concept of God too, isn't it?
Who gave us the way to breathe? Who gave us the heart to function?
If he's the guy in the sky.
So if they can't see that, then they seem separate.
Yeah, so what you're saying, that's a valid argument so far. That's one of the things that we would say. But what will happen is in real life, they will now bring a counter argument. Because now I will say to you, with the air that I breathe, they also attributeful. So what does that prove? Right? So now we have to keep going until the last person is standing, and they can go through their system, go through their school of philosophy. So let's see how Vidyaranya handles this. The teacher replies to this doubt in a sarcastic fashion. Brahman is attributeless. That's the summary. Rani just said that. Okay, reply to the counter question. Does the objection you have raised relate to Brahman without attributes or with attributes? If the first, then you are caught in your own trap. If the second, it involves logical fallacies of infinite regression, resting on oneself, etc. Okay. Put the last sentence away, the infinite logical fallacies, we'll address that. Again, then we'll just go answer it. The mind cannot grasp the infinite and attributeless nirvikalpa. We'll start with that. The mind simply cannot grasp it. So right there, this means no matter what I pose, counter question, it is simply invalid. It's actually an invalid argument. Because whatever counter question, whatever doubt you pose me, that doubt is on the basis of your thought. And that thought is what? Attributes. But Brahman is beyond thought. To bring nirvikalpa into argument of comparison, you've already turned nirvikalpa into savikalpa. So just to go, okay, is Brahman nirvikalpa or savikalpa? You hear that? To do that, I have to then turn nirvikalpa as something that I can compare against. But how can I compare against a formless? So this person mistakenly turned nirvikalpa into another savikalpa, attribute-full reality. Hence, contradicted yourself. Also, for the mind to ask about the infinite, Brahman, it has to reduce that infinite to the capacity of its own finite logical caliber. That means to the extent to which I can think about this Mahavakya, to that extent I'm going to reduce the infinite to that very capacity. So if I'm very smart, then I'm going to reduce the infinite to a big size. If I'm not so smart, I'm still going to reduce the infinite to a little bit smaller size. So are you talking about the infinite or the finite? Having said that, that's one way to answer. Now let's see how Chinmaya, when I say Chinmaya, it's one of the acharyas in Chinmaya. This was AV's argument, now Chinmaya's argument. How can nirvikalpa be indicated as savikalpa by the Tattvamasi Mahavakya? That's a counter question. How can you indicate nirvikalpa? How can nirvikalpa be indicated as savikalpa? This is a fallacious statement. I can pause there. How can you compare formless to formful? That's what he's saying. This is called vyahati dosha, an impossible doubt. Like in the classical example, I do not have a tongue. I don't have a tongue. What's the problem with that?
Just said
that.
So the logic itself is flawed, right? And it is a repetitious statement because savikalpa itself means with modifications. This means it depends on... So to pose that question, I needed to first I needed to a reference point to something else. So to compare savikalpa with nirvikalpa, then I had to relate to something previously from my memory, and I took that and I dumped it onto nirvikalpa. That's what you call dependence. Where is it? Fallacy of mutual dependence. In other words, I had to put these two together in order to compare them. But to put formless against the formful, what am I doing? I'm turning the formless into a form. So therefore I'm putting that as a mutual dependence, which is a fallacy. That's what it says.
It's like saying infinity is a bigger number than the biggest number you can think of.
Yeah, or infinity to the power of infinity is bigger than infinity. Me and my brother used to play that, right? No, I'm infinitely better. No, I'm two infinities better.
Plus one.
Yeah, plus one. That means he doesn't understand infinity, right? He hasn't probably grasped it. The use of savikalpa will lead to other fallacies, and I'm just going to take two because we don't want to get to just different types of fallacies. Self-dependence and circular logic. Actually, we'll take self-dependence and mutual dependence. Self-dependence is when you're depending on your own reference point. That means I can only argue you according to what I already know. That's it. So this doubter can only argue the acharya on the basis of their own knowledge, their own self-knowledge, which isn't, in this case, very much. Or mutual dependence. That is when the doubter is not only using their knowledge that they have, but they're also taking something that is complementary, that supports their arguments from maybe a different school. So that means they're taking like 2, A and B, and now these two are then supposed to negate nirvikalpa. So it's a mutual dependence. There's a mutual working together. And this, and so nirvikalpa is being negated on the basis of these two communicating. That means you're like having a little chatter in your head. Yeah, but nirvikalpa is, it's unreal. Yeah, no, it's unreal because it's another thought. Yeah, you're right. And it's also unreal because I heard elsewhere that, you cannot know the formless. You're absolutely right. Let me tell you what else I heard. So it is having a little conversation with its own reference points. Now, we're going to increase this doubt even more and make it harder. Without reading, okay, we'll read the verse. These fallacies, these 2 fallacies that I talked about, or 4, we'll just say 2, are of similar nature as we can see with reference to attribute, action, type, object, relationship with the object. Therefore, the same should be understood with reference to Brahman also. Okay. Now, to translate this, what it really said is, I'll just read the commentary. In the last verse, the Acharya was correcting doubter's definition of nirvikalpa and savikalpa, because doubter turned nir into sa. Clear? Mm-hmm. Furthermore, Acharya explained 4 defects of savikalpa logic. In this, I just explained 2. Which doubter is using to challenge reality of Brahman. That means the doubter used mutual dependence and self-dependence. But doubter is smart. He says, those same 4 defects also apply to action, like thinking, and relationship, like viveka. And since thinking or logic, thinking or viveka, itself is savikalpa, because it has attributes, all thinking has attributes, this means thinking logic itself inheres 4 defects. This means any kind of viveka that I try to do between satya and mithya, that is also inhered with what? 4 defects. That means I'm using my own reference point to think about the formless. Which means your knowledge of nirvikalpa Brahman is also flawed. This is what the doubter is saying to the teacher. Since thought viveka of the author is also infused with 4 defects. Is that doubt clear? So what it's saying is, as I said at the beginning, suppose you get this knowledge right now, and you have to use your mind. Mind implies what? Action, thinking. Now that thinking is also savikalpa. So the Acharya in the previous verse said that savikalpa has 4 logical fallacies. But to arrive to the formless, I also have to use my own mind, which it has these logical fallacies to arrive to the formless. Okay, so in other words, I cannot use the flawed instrument to arrive to the flawless. I can't use an imperfect instrument to arrive to the perfect. So this is the basis of the argument of the doubter. Now, what's going to be answered to this? How is the Acharya going to negate this doubt? the conclusion from the above discussion goes like this, verse 52. And it's going to, we'll just entitle this, The Ultimate Standpoint of the Self. Before I do this, we'll just draw a diagram. I'm going to ask you a question. Could you get out of this argument if this was posed to you? And how would you? What would you reply to soothe the confusion of this doubter?
For something that is flawed, you must know it's not flawed.
Oh, good.
Well, essentially, we've just got to go back to that definition of the words infinity and
so it's what you said before.
unchanging.
Mind.
The awareness, consciousness.
Yeah.
We're trying to get that across.
Okay. Okay, let's sketch it out, and then maybe this is gonna. Okay, we had two people in discussion. That's what just happened. And there's a confrontation of two ideas. This person A does not know the truth. They think that Brahman is false. This person is clear. So what just happened in this scenario? Like what's the situation? What is it that?
Basically, A was saying that because we have a flawed mind, we can't know that Brahman is real.
Yeah, because the flawed mind is attributeful. But if I'm claiming that Brahman is attributeless, then where's the? How can I?
Yeah, how do you actually claim? And you needed self there to make that claim originally.
Yeah. Okay.
You're trying to get ignorance to agree with knowledge. You're trying to get ignorance to agree with knowledge.
Okay, that's a good statement.
Object A is limiting his knowledge to what he has acquired during his lifetime or whatever.
Yeah, another one. Yeah.
Yeah. And B obviously is clearer than that limitless.
Yeah,
limited knowledge.
Okay, yeah.
He's going beyond and having faith in what he's...
Yeah, excellent.
Well, as long as you remain in the realm of logic, you're not going to get it. So he's bound to that. He's bound to that logic. So it's impossible to conceive of it.
Yeah, okay.
So what's the logic that goes to show that the self pervades deep sleep when the mind isn't active, I suppose?
Yeah, that's another way to use...
It's still attached to the body, mind and intellect. The other one is not connecting it to the body, mind, intellect. It's going beyond that. That's why it's going...
Yeah, or is aware of that, which is they're coming from.
So you've got to try and remove the ignorance from first before you can actually...
But aren't we committed to working within the logic of what's being presented rather than say, this guy's ignorant?
Yeah.
So is that what we're confined to?
Yeah.
Okay, so we can all say he doesn't know the self,
he
hasn't been hanging around the right people.
Exactly.
But so we have to work within the logical framework, and we're bound to that framework.
Yeah.
To remain in that, to demonstrate that it is possible.
Yeah.
Is that what we're dealing with?
That's exactly what we're
This
doing.
goes back to that illustration.
Yeah.
One of the knowledge is coming from the intellect space, but yet there is still limitations of
But we have
the
to
emotion.
We have to demonstrate. Sorry, you go.
And the mind.
Yeah.
So he's still not, the one with the knowledge isn't pure.
Yeah, we know that. We know the attributes. So we're speaking now from we know the attributes of this person. But like Gareth said, he made a good point. We can't speak about how this person is ignorant.
The subtle body is the difference between the two. One's coming from an intellect, and the other one's coming from
okay, but if I said that to you, suppose that or you was like, no, you're coming from the intellect. You're gonna just say, I'm not. You're also coming from the intellect.
That's right.
Right? About your Brahma stuff, it's also intellect.
Yeah, he's limiting without inquiring.
Yeah.
object A, is limiting his knowledge without inquiring, going into inquiry and meditating on it.
Okay, much better.
Actually getting the, understanding why this person is saying that.
Yeah.
He needs to investigate that whole situation. Why is this person saying this Brahman?
Okay, that means time. That needs time to.
Yeah, he's just limiting and blocking it from inquiring.
Yeah, but the thing is, he's stuck with his view. So to say no, it's okay. You just need to take some time. They're going to take more time just refuting Vedanta.
Yeah, but we were all stuck in our views, but we inquiring with you. We're going through the knowledge and understanding. Yeah, there could be more than that. There could be this point of view. So that inquiry is.
That inquiry will take place, because that means, see, also at some point they were actually even refuting their own view right now. They were, because they're a Nyayika, they're a logician. At some point earlier in lifetime, they did not agree to what they agree right now. So their own minds is going through
There's still independent waves. There's still waves, whether you're coming from knowledge.
Okay. So they're looking at this reality, still identify with the wave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a lot of friends who don't believe that is, that power, Brahman or whatever, that beyond has.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is going back. Now I can understand myself more.
Yeah.
Going back, I used to say to them simple things like, like the body, what's happening in our body, who has the control, and also like, I used to say things like a cow could be brown, black, white, whatever. Produces pure white milk, but it's grass, green grass. Now, who can do that? So I said, there's Brahman in the cow itself. So things like nobody can actually make that happen.
Yeah.
So simple things like that I used to explain. So then they would go back a bit puzzled and they'll think about it. But
That's a good kind of gets their thoughts going in a different direction.
Can't you just put a logical argument back? There are limits to logic. Logic fails on so many fronts.
Yeah.
That you're presenting now logic and demanding that we play on the tennis court of logic, right? And you're not entertaining the fact that logic fails so often. So, like, where does the sky end? Where does space end?
Yeah, where does the sky end?
I mean, as a kid, I used to think, come on, that's just.
Yeah, what does infinity actually?
Yeah, I mean, so where in so many counts logic fails. So why are you embedded and have this faith in logic when all around, solve this one, solve that one, solve this one?
Yeah.
So that doesn't necessarily cite the presence of Brahman, but it's kind of saying logic fails.
Yeah, it does.
But then participating in that yourself, you're arguing logic.
I too use logic to arrive at Brahman.
Yeah. So I don't think you can. You can't do it.
I don't think you can.
You can only say that logic's got limits, but then again, I'm arguing logically that logic's got limits. I'm saying
logically, logic's got limits. Well, you can't use logic, otherwise we wouldn't have see everything that exists has a purpose, and logic is there to by following the Upanishads, it does lead us to the ultimate truth. But if we follow it specifically how the Upanishads prescribe, that's why we can't get this knowledge elsewhere. We need to follow the Upanishad literature.
So, but that's an article of faith.
But isn't it just the concept of infinity? It's just like
well, it defies logic, doesn't it? Or it defies material.
Exactly, because logic is so segmented.
Yeah, you can't. There's nothing to grab onto that. Really.
Reasoning fails.
The mind wants to understand that. In the end, it has to say, "No, I just can't be bothered looking at it."
No, just
it's always a dead end.
It's really big.
It's bigger than yours.
Big, right?
Yeah.
Because that your idea of big is different from my idea of big.
But in a way, that's the infinity is like the door to what
dissolving the power of logic.
What we're pointing to is it's under that door we call infinity. Yeah.
So, but they might not accept that infinity exists. So they might have, the scientists and the Big Bang and all that. Yeah. They're trying to deal with infinity, really. Yeah. And they've got some...
They're trying to objectify it.
Exactly. To deal with infinity is to deal with the finite.
Right.
And it's just...
So is that the response?
Because
we're hanging off the edge of chair here.
How can I grasp infinity?
How are you going so far?
Well, it's the same as eternal, because infinity is the spatial word, but eternal is the time word, so it comes back to space and time.
Well, it can be both.
Yeah, it can be both. They're actually one and the same, eternal and infinity.
Yes.
See, object is like all of us in various stages of our life where we don't understand certain things and we don't accept certain things, and we accept certain things through just blind faith. And so I suppose we have to give object A to time to just make the inquiry.
I think we all arrive at the
understanding.
same place ultimately.
Yeah, ultimately.
It's just that
Arrive to the clear mind.
once,
Yeah.
at a different time.
Just like a child. We
stage.
didn't believe in certain things, and now we.
So how is this resolved?
Okay. First, so this is what the idea says. Whether the above doubt exists or not, whether there is a doubt or not, the self, which is reality, is untouched by them. Reality doesn't care about your doubts. Space doesn't care about what objects are in the room. I can curse space, I can praise space, space remains just like it always was. Thus, all the discussion on fallacy of properties, that means this is false, that is false, here's why it's false, blah, blah, endless conversations. Also, the Mahavakya itself, as an indicator of the reality, also useless. Reality doesn't care how many Mahavakyas exist. Also, the relationship of Brahman and the world, all of these are mere superimpositions only. Everything we said in this conversation, this question, this sharing, what still remains?
Awareness.
Yeah, you see that which is going to remain even after we stop speaking, and which was always will be there. So even when the argument is over, when this entire section is over, what remains?
Awareness.
The substratum, the awareness. That means even Mahavakya, that you are. Great. So, right, I'm still here, whether I say it or not. The point is reality, regardless of the presence or absence of any observations regarding reality. Sages have thus said reality is beyond words. Swami Chinmaya used to say, to define God is to defile God. To define infinity is to reduce infinity to finite. To say Brahman is all silence is only with respect to the all-noise world which we are so familiar. Therefore, even to say Brahman is silence is also another finite word. The example of snake and rope was given with a fresh twist in the context. Relative to the qualities of the snake, it's certainly true that the rope has no poison. The rope means Brahman. That means free of qualities of the world. But poisonlessness, that means nirguna, is not the definition of the rope. So this means the snake can't call the rope poisonlessness. It is true, but does the rope care? So in other words, the snake can only say that the rope, the truth which it's describing, only gets the chance to describe the truth because of the truth itself. The person A only gets to have an argument because of the substratum itself. So the poisonlessness, that is the purity, is not the definition of the rope. It is only a relative view of the rope seen from the snake's dualistic standpoint. Therefore, even to say reality is infinite, even the word infinite is dualistic, because there's finite. Even to describe it as all, limitlessness, even that is duality. Because I can't describe what is independent of the word. I've limited it.
Yep.
So are the descriptions like nirvikalpa, nirguna, and ananda only relative views of reality from the standpoint of this world. Now we can see why the best definition for Brahman is given in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad as simply the uncontradictable statement, na iti, na iti. Not this, not this, not this, not even that, not even that. No matter what you say, not even that. No matter what you pose, what idea, what speculation, not even that. Yeah, what about not even that? Oh, I had an epiphany, not even that. I had a dream, not even. I heard the truth, not even that.
I suppose it's taking whatever argument they come up with. It's clearly going to be a limited argument relative. It's going to be it's going to be objective and changeable. So you've just got to follow whatever argument they give you through to the point where it changes. Because it's inevitable, it's got to change.
Yeah, right. And then say, okay, where's the argument now? It was just a thought in your mind, right? Now the next topic we will do next fortnight will be the means to realization, and we're going to go back into sadhana mode and just revise Shravanam Mananam. That won't take too long. And then we will go into Aparoksha Anubhuti, which will be the next one. And this will give us 40 verses on how to integrate this knowledge of non-duality in one's life. How to, some things you can do with the mind to modify your thoughts, to be more conducive with reality. That's what's going to go.
The practical stuff.
Practical thinking, practical some actions. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Got a new slogan: infinity, don't even talk about it.
Full stop. No, not even full stop. Already limited.
Don't even talk about it.
Infinity, yeah. That means any logic is useless.
As a kid, I always loved the infinity symbol. I sort of in the tarot, there's a magician, and he's got an infinity as a halo. Yeah, I just love that.
8. Was it Nikola Tesla who said, if you understand the number 8, you understand the
number 8?
Number 8, the meaning of the universe.
Oh, okay.
I wonder why I said that.
Can I ask you a question?
Huh?
Can I ask you? Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, because number 8 is also the most auspicious number in China. They always have 8 as the...
Not 13? 13 is almost unauspicious.
No, if you know Chinese license plates, they was going to pay extra for an 8 in the number plate.
They also take 13 out of the elevator. China takes out the 13 number from the elevator. It's an unlucky number.
Yeah, but when you're on level 14, you know what level
Can't escape.
It's a general question.
Bad luck.
We were having a little chat, and Dave claims that everything you do, God makes you do it. So I said, but there is...
God doesn't make you do it. God is doing it.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
He said everything you do, God is doing it through you.
God is in it through you, yeah.
Okay.
So you're a vehicle, yeah.
So I looked at the whole thing in a bigger picture, and I said, okay, there's bad and there's good. There's duality in life.
Yeah.
So you have an option. That's why God provided you intellect and whatever body to distinguish which is not to have discrimination, which is good, which is better option to do.
Yeah.
So that doesn't mean I told him that doesn't mean God is actually making doing it for you. The bad thing you make a choice. Yeah. That choice is yours.
Yeah.
So according to your karma, vasanas, all this stuff.
Yeah.
So there was a little bit of dispute among that in this morning when we got up in
so
bed. We were doing this. We were so ardent students of yours. We were doing this in bed as we got up. First thing, even before brushing teeth and everything, we were talking about this.
Yeah, what is?
So
good to see the quality of your arguments is getting better. I go into this thing about options. There's options for you. There's more than 2 options sometimes in life to do.
Yeah,
so taking the option is according to your vasanas and all this kind of stuff.
That's easy. Yeah, that's
and you know it's wrong. Awareness comes through.
Yeah.
Even if you say you want to do the bad thing, you know it's wrong, and yet we do it.
Yeah, we know we do it. Yeah.
So this is where I don't think God is doing it.
Yeah.
Well, you could say God is presenting the picture. You've got to decide which part.
God's given you the power to
can we have a
Then
clarification?
you are always God.
Yeah, sure, easy. So just take Shivananda's example. For example, suppose that I get in a car, right, and I drive recklessly, and I crash the car. Can I go to the court and then blame the petrol?
No, you blame the God for doing it.
Can I blame the petrol? Petrol is in this case the power which provides me to make my choices. So in other words, I use the petrol, but according to the petrol's presence, I decided to use it in a way that causes pain onto myself. That petrol is just there. It's value neutral. It provides me the opportunity to go to someone's house and pay respect to them, change someone's life and also improve my life. Or I can use that same petrol to drive recklessly and make a big mistake. So God is just a value neutral essence in whose presence we get to either transform or fall, or regress or progress. It's simple as that.
No, I think she explained it well.
Okay, maybe
No, everything that happens is because of God, isn't it? Brahman, right? So
Because of the three gunas. Brahman has nothing to do with anything, yeah.
So if you walk down the road and you kick the dog, God is doing that as well.
Yeah, okay, stop. God is in what specifically? God is in the power for me to think where the slave needs to go in order to aim at that target. Yeah. See, if I didn't have intelligence, nimitta karanam, then I wouldn't be able to use that intelligence to do what? Damage of kicking. So I, number one, borrowed nimitta karanam and upadana karanam in order to hit the target. But that intelligence, yes, it was provided by God, that material was provided by God, but despite that, I still am also provided what? The three bodies, and those three bodies, I was able to assess according to my logic, what is the best course of action to go from here to there. And in this case, I've decided to kick. So God provided me all of the ability to think, to see the person through the eyes. The light, the sun is also from God, the guna, sattva guna mainly, provided me the visuals to see, therefore to interact, and all of this I borrowed, and then on the basis of what I've been offered, I'm able then to decide and say, I want to kick. So therefore, two principles, God is the provider of every experience, and two, despite the provisions being offered, I can still choose to go from direction 1 to 2 based on my body. Three bodies.
Isn't God also the provided?
The provided, yeah.
God is everything.
Yeah, God is everything. The provider and the provided.
So the kicking at a dog is the wrong action, but you can take your foot and maybe move away from the dog. That's the right action.
The potential to pat the dog or kick the dog.
Yeah.
It's up to you. It's up to you.
But you want a strange dog, yeah?
There's an infinite amount of potentials.
Yeah.
You picked one.
But I wouldn't pet a strange dog, which I don't know.
Yes, it doesn't matter. That's the material.
Yeah. Yeah,
I would rather walk away.
Yeah.
That would be my best choice.
Yeah.
Than going and kicking a dog or petting a dog or whatever.
No, but the point is, as soon as you finish that action, as soon as you've kicked the dog, that's when it's giving it back out to the universe.
Okay, now the point...
And it comes back again.
Yeah, but the point is what Dave is coming out with is the fact that kicking the dog is also saying God is doing it through you.
Yeah, but the dog's come out, so you kick the dog.
Yeah, Dave is right, but we need to be a little bit more specific.
No,
because
I'm confused now.
Yeah, no,
how can it be dogs come?
It's the wave in the ocean. It's not the water kicking the dog, it's the wave kicking.
No, karma, because then you will take the word karma and we will then bash the word karma.
Every world is
right.
killing everybody and
saying
karma.
They deserve it. And it's someone's wallet, it's okay, I'm rich now, it's their karma. I actually helped you.
If you're under the tree and a branch falls on your head,
yeah.
That's your karma.
Who caused the branch to fall on your head?
Who caused?
The branch is old.
Yeah, okay, but it's still issue. It's still original issue.
Your karma.
It's okay. What caused the branch to go from top to bottom? Still gravity. Gravity is also an expression of Ishvara. Creation.
No, but the fact that he was stood in exactly that position where it landed on his head.
Yeah. Now you have to go trace one back. What circumstances caused me to stand here in this environment? Because you often notice that the most trouble that we often get is when we're outside, when we're in this world. So just by having an extroverted mind, that means by the fact that I did not take my time to meditate and to contemplate on God causes me to go more externally, and what happens externally, more chance of conflict, more chance of accidents. So the more I'm extroverted, the more I'm away from the highest, the self, the more karmic actions will I not only create, but also I will experience.
And you see that as you're just moving through everyday life. You know that when you're actually operating at that higher level, as you're just moving through, the parking space is right there when you need it. The lights are green when you need it. Everything just flows.
And you have positive thought, I will get a kappa. And you will get a kappa.
But as soon as you start thinking in a different way, like, again, your ego, which it will, your ego starts to feel good about it and then starts to project.
And it all starts to fall apart. And it says, I'm the doer.
That's it.
Yeah, I'm the doer. You see, also fallacy with thinking that God is a doer is then we're all doomed. Because that means, I have to just wait. If my moksha is supposed to be 20 trillion lifetimes from now, then I'm wasting my time here. So it's a very kind of discouraging view to have, that I'm being controlled, like puppeted, because then, what's the point of living?
You wouldn't give us intelligence anyway, intellect. You have to,
then what's the point of living?
Discriminate the good and bad.
Yeah.
No, it's not a control thing. It happens.
So it's a causeless. It just happens. I know. Yeah.
But it's the difference between being a zombie and being a human, and the fact that you can interact with the play and it plays back.
No. He's not referring to that. I know what you say, but everything is a causeless cause. Nobody's doing anything. But just to say that statement is very general, right? So we have to, in order to get some quantification for the mind, we have to categorize it. What specifically do we mean? What's going on? Because if I just say to you, everything's just happening, it's like, how do you make a teaching out of that? How do you explain the practicality out of that? Yes, it is true on the absolute level, on not the absolute, because in the absolute there is no world, but from the Vyavaharika, transactional rate, everything's just happening according to the causes and effects. And if you think about it, there is no such thing as cause is separate from the effect. The cause is always producing the effect, and the effect is a result of the immediately preceding cause. So, for example, I moved my hand. Not only did the thought itself was the cause, but the effect itself was the result of the cause. So the cause and the effect are essentially one. They're always entwined, but we divide them, cause, effect.
I think you've also got to think of it in more three-dimensional terms as well. It's not just linear. There's a lot of sub-effects as well as effects.
For example, if there's a thunderstorm right now, then it scared me, then I wouldn't be able to speak so openly. I would have been determined by the thunder sound. So even the sound of the thunder will influence how I speak to you now. If it's a small thunder, then I won't be scared. I'll be clear. If it's a big thunder, then immediately tamaguna will be induced in the body, and then it will suppress how quickly and how I can express myself. So this is what I mean. Everything's happening at the same time, but to understand that, we have to then categorize it first and understand how everything's interacting together. Once we understand, then you can say everything's just happening.
We're creating a map of infinity.
Yeah, that's right. Because the mind is not infinite, so the mind has to then first look at every part. It's called synergy. Many parts make up the whole.
It sort of made me realize that the reason why religions don't devote themselves, or organized religions don't devote themselves to the concept of infinity, because it's so formless in a apparently formed world that people would go, well, what's the point? We can just do whatever we want. Because if you have a concept of infinity, where do you place yourself? So organized religions will have an anthropomorphic version of God, a big guy who's looking at you, watching you. But if you have a version of God that implies the infinite, then there's this lack of definition that people can't really
distance,
and they don't have an informed process for how they live their lives.
Yeah.
But if that is what God is, this infinite thing that we can't define, it's formless and so on. It's quite troubling for most people's way of thinking. I mean, whatever way of thinking you inherited, generally it's a hard concept to get around. So we gravitate to something that's the form. The form.
Because the mind.
We're attracted to that because it provides definition, because we define ourselves pretty quickly, mind, body, and we resonate with that. But so if you go back into the world after being exposed to these teachings, the habit will be you'll fall back into the form, the awareness of everything being a form.
Yeah.
So, infinity is just really hard to grasp.
That's a good point, because that's one of the qualifications. And if you notice, most people reject who want to come here. I would say, where you've been, what you've done. And I'll just ask some questions. And the questions, they're just simply unacceptable, because then there's a lot of work to get to them. So there needs to be a certain time factor for the person to be qualified. So we don't have to go through this basic stuff of at least getting to the point that there is infinity. Right? That much a person can do. Like, there is something infinity. I don't know what it is, but I at least believe infinity. Right? And I want to grasp this infinity. Even if they speak like this, grasp infinity, it's still good. Yeah. But if they go, no, I can't grasp it, then we just leave them. Wait a couple of years.
It's very elusive. It's not gonna.
But like, for it not to be infinity, it's just like mind-boggling. How could things even be finite?
Yeah. And so how do we grasp?
But even if you start introducing the concept and talking about God, because that's the only reference point most people have got for it, then it's going to take on a form. God. I can't even discuss like God without an image, not an image, but a whole lot of sort of unexamined associations coming together. But they're not infinite. Yeah. They don't have any infinite qualities to it. They have a sense of power, presence, all that sort of thing.
Even love, benevolence,
all that.
It's all limiting.
So they're all got properties to them. So and that's not a bad thing, like going to the idea of God. But then this is another step.
Yeah, this is another step.
Yeah.
I guess there's 3 steps. One is to say God is very featureful. Like he's you resonate with this body. And then you will obviously see God as another body.
He lives in his heaven, so so of course he's got features.
So it depends on what you resonate with. If I'm a body, then God is a body. If I'm more with my mental, my emotions, then God is what? All loving.
Yes.
If I'm intellectual, then God is what? All knowing. So my definition of God changes based on the identification of my own. This is why in the spiritual circles we don't hang out, because everyone's carrying a different definition. Like, I don't know who's associated with are you associated with your body mainly, your sukshma sharira, or your intellect, right? Your mind or your intellect.
So what? Say that again. Why don't you hang out? Because
everyone's got an identification with a different part of their makeup. If a person's makeup is identified with their physical, then how do they see Ishvara? As physical person sitting somewhere.
Okay.
Intellect?
Yeah.
Good. So this means we have a universal system in Vedanta, so we're on the same page.
Among all the living things, human beings are the only ones with intellect. Human beings are the only ones with intellect.
Yeah.
And why is intellect provided for human beings is to differentiate what's right and what's wrong.
No, that's not true. That's not true. Animals have intellect.
Animals don't have intellect. They have a mind.
Animals have discrimination.
They have a mind.
They have intellect, just basic intellect to maneuver.
Yeah. Very inert intellect, isn't it? It's not like...
It is still an intellect.
It's not as well developed as sophisticated.
Yeah. So anything that's sentient has even a plant has intellect.
Even a tree.
Yeah.
Even a plant can decide to grow one way or this way, towards the sun or away from the sun.
You see how they kind of wrap around?
Yeah, I've seen it happen.
Why does it always choose the sun then, Martin?
Not all plants though.
I'm not a plant psychologist. I just observe.
Some they prefer shade. They prefer the dark.
Yeah, but the point is they still prefer. It's still
best for its own.
There's still an ingrained system of preference. So that's intellect.
Yeah.
Not that they're doing it, but it's not going, I don't want the sun today.
But I suppose we are given that complexity of intellect because of the fact that
plants don't commit suicide.
No, they don't. We kill the plants. Plants don't suicide.
Oh, that looked like.
How do you do that?
He's got a book where they do.
This guy was studying some trees and